Good morning. It's really nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's really nice. I have a picture of my dad on the screen because my story really begins with him. A lot of people feel he looks like Kenny Rogers a little bit, but he really couldn't sing a note. But he tried to. The story really begins with my dad when he was going through Abilene Christian College to be a minister. He was also a landscaper at that time, and he ended up falling out of a tree and injuring his back. And that caused chronic lower back pain and leg pain. And at that point, he went to many medical doctors, and the medical doctors said, well, maybe you could benefit from surgery, but we don't know the outcome. And so my dad's mom said, why don't you seek out a chiropractor? And back then, chiropractors were at times being arrested for practicing medicine without a license. And so what was interesting is he found a chiropractor and he came to his house and he opened up his table, and 3 times a week he adjusted my dad. And after about 6 to 8 weeks, my dad's lower back pain and sciatica pain, leg pain, was completely gone. So he went back to Abilene Christian College. He was going to become this minister like his father. And what then happened was one summer day, my dad gets a call. And he gets a call from this chiropractor that helped him. And he called him from the local jail. And he said to my dad, he said, I'm in jail. And my dad, for what? And he said, I cashed a check when I adjusted a patient, and then they arrested me for practicing medicine without a license. So that takes it back to probably, I don't even know, 53 or 54, somewhere around there, maybe 55. But in any event, that really shook my dad to the core. He could not understand how someone who helped him so much could be arrested for doing what he was gifted to do. So at that point in time, he finished up his schooling at Abilene Christian College, and then he decided my path is shifting. And I am so thankful that my dad shifted his path because he was an amazing minister. I loved his ability to bring clarity to some principles that have really evolved me in my life. But more importantly, as far how I look at it, is he became this amazing doctor, and it all started from this inspiration to really do what this other doctor had done for him. But then he realized when he went to chiropractic college that it was all philosophy, and that chiropractors said, oh, that vertebra misaligns and impinges on a nerve, and then that impacts an organ. And he said, that's all well and good, but where is the evidence to support what is being done within the chiropractic profession? So he goes through school, and he's really loving that experience, but he has this vision of measuring the work he's doing. Okay. And so that's where we are really today. We measure stress. And so he gets out of chiropractic college, and my dad, someone says, you should read this book, The Stress of Life. Has anybody heard of that book? Well, The Stress of Life is written by a medical doctor. His name is Hans Selye. And Hans Selye really is the person who termed the word stress. And he talked about in his book what is called the general adaptation syndrome. And that means that when we're hit with stress, say a car accident, we get in a car accident, and then our body is hit with an alarm reaction, and then immediately we will go into a resistance reaction, meaning our body will go into muscle spasm to protect us from being further damaged. You spoke about inflammation. And so the resistance pattern is an inflammation process. And then after that inflammation wears off, this is why so many people can get in a car accident and feel fine. And then 2 months later, oh, I'm in so much pain, I can't take it. Because the resistance reaction will wear off. And when the resistance reaction wears off, then the person will go into an exhaustion pattern. And that's where we're going to feel more physical pain. So my dad thought, well, that's interesting. Is there a resistance spine? Is there an exhaustion spine? Is there a normal spine? So that's really where the work started. And so I'm blessed that he was brilliant and he was so different. How we look at things today is like no other doctor really on the planet. And we're looking at people in two positions of stress. So we look at full spine x-rays that are 14 inches by 36 inches long. And we look at the spine from the front and side standing and from the front and side sitting. So a lot of people think, well, why would you look at the seated position? Because most injuries that we're impacted by today are taking place in the seated position. So if you're in a car accident, then you should study the person in the position they're injured in. If you study that person, say anyone's had an MRI in this room? Okay, and how many people have been lying down during that MRI? Okay, so what happens is you have a seated injury, and then you go to the doctor and they lie you down to assess you. And so they're taking the load off, taking gravity off, and they're trying to identify why the person is having the problem they're having. Well, it's very difficult to do when we're looking at people in a stress position that is not the injury position. So slip and falls, forward bending lifting, sitting at a desk all the time, even situations like side sleeping. Anyone here side sleep? Anyone here fetal sleep when you sleep on your side? Drop your head? Worst thing you can do in life. Okay, so meaning the minute, side sleep is not so bad, but when you drop your head down, what happens to the spinal cord is we overstretch the spinal cord. What then happens to the brain is the brain squeezes. So, and then all the nerves at its exit pinch. And so this is why in our work, when people have severe neck problems, we put them in a soft foam collar. We have them wear the high part under the chin so that we take the weight of the head off the body. And by doing that, we keep them from dropping the head, and then we keep them from overstretching the spinal cord. Okay. So anyway, that's a picture of my dad, and I have a personal story, and again, thankful for him. In my life experience, there was a time I had hair. Now, it was a while back, but I had hair a while ago. And when I was born in 1962, my dad had been a chiropractor since 1960. I was born 2.5 months early as a result of a head-on collision that took place in Mexico when I was in my mom's belly. And it caused me to come 2.5 months early, and that was not really great back then. And so I spent nearly a couple months in an incubator, and my veins collapsed, so they had to feed me intravenously. And then my heart stopped all the time once I could leave the hospital. And so I had to sleep on my dad's chest, and when my heart would stop, he would revive me. And so that induced in my life the hardest challenge I ever had to overcome. And that challenge for me was 50 speech impediments and major learning disabilities. So my mom's in this story too, because she's the one that made me go to speech therapy every day for almost 12 years. Oh my gosh. And About my 11th grade year in high school is when my speech problems began to clear up, thankfully. And so without her, I wouldn't be here speaking. There was a time I was so scared of public speaking as a result of those early traumas and feeling inadequate as a result of having those major speech problems that no other kids seemingly had. And so it provided me with evidence to support how I felt, and I felt like, oh, I wasn't very smart, so I ended up struggling all the way through school. I ended up getting in trouble, and I got kicked out of high school my 11th grade year. And that's when my life really changed. I had a teacher, and the teacher said, you know, Steve, you're really smart. I said, oh, no, you're talking about someone else. Right? And he said, no, you're really smart. And I said, oh, okay. And so I made up my junior year and senior year, my senior year of high school. I went to Villa Park Night School, made up my junior year, and went to Canyon High School my senior year, and I reframed all that energy. Anyway, at age 5, I was diagnosed with the Hong Kong flu, and it settled in my spine, and so I spent 8 months in a full body cast. Oh my God. And so that was me for 8 months, laying on my back. That's why I'm kind of hyper today. I'm making up for lost time. In any event, this was a challenging time, but it was a breakthrough for my dad's work. Because what happened was, I was getting worse out of the cast. My exhaustion was so severe. I was sleeping 22 hours a day. He had every doctor under the sun looking at me, trying to help me, and all I was doing is getting worse. And so one day, he put me on my stomach, and I was able to stand like 5 minutes a day. He put me on my stomach, he flexed my heels to my buttocks, he pulled my legs down, and he notes, wow, my son has a 2.5-inch right short leg. How is that even possible? And then he would do an adjustment and correct it. And then when he'd get me up and walk, I would walk with this incredible limp for a couple of minutes. So that's when he made his first discovery. And that was the discovery of the functional short leg, which everyone in this room has either a right short leg or a left short leg. If you're right in curve, that would indicate you're more emotional, you have more female parent influence. If you're left in curve, that indicates you operate more in logic, and you'll process your hurts, and you'll rationalize them. And so based on short leg assessment, it gives us incredible information. And for me, it was the turning point for my life, because I went from walking 5 to 10 minutes a day to within about 6 months, I was back to school. And I was back to school with a lot of issues, but at least I was back to school. And within a couple of years, I was playing full contact football. It's like, well, wow, what happened? Okay. So anyway, I bring that picture up because it is really my connection with my dad, and how amazing he was in my life to really help me through many of my challenges, and my mom as well with the speech problems and learning disabilities. It really does take a village in life. And when you do have parents that are willing to work through the challenges, you can make it through one day to a different place. In any event, so what he determined was there are 4 basic curvatures of the spine. And this work started in the mid-60s, where he started with this aerospace engineer. He said, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to go to an engineer. I'm going to ask an engineer, what can we do to measure the results that we're getting with our patients? Because I know I'm helping them, but how do I really know I'm helping them if I have no evidence to support I'm helping them? So the aerospace engineer said, you need to develop a measuring system that you could use on a before and after basis. My dad, back then they were doing a lot of segmental x-rays. Oh, your neck hurts, let's look at your neck, okay? Or your lower back hurts, let's look at your lower back. And that's all well and good. That's a good approach for, is there a fracture? Is there a dislocation? Is there a disc problem? Is there a local problem? However, it's highly inadequate when we are trying to understand why the body's breaking down. Why is the neck having a problem? Because the neck is part of the intact spinal system. And so when we take it apart to assess people, so I just look at your neck, then I cannot determine how far forward your neck is from normal, how far backward your neck is from normal, how far right, how far left. Okay, you can't determine that by looking at a little picture. You must see that relative to the rest of the body. And so, anyway, that's the difference between our approach to healthcare, and most other doctors will look at problems segmentally, sectionally, and they'll look at it standing or lying down, and a lot of times lying down. And we feel that that's fine if we're looking for a local problem. Like if you have a car accident and you think there might be a fracture, that's a good idea. But then beyond that, what happens when you're in severe pain? How many people have ever been in severe pain, went to the doctor, they took an x-ray, and then they said, oh, you're okay? How many people have had that happen? Because I have a ton of people that come to me after going to so many doctors, and the doctors are saying, nothing's wrong, and they're saying, but I can't walk. How is that possible that nothing's wrong and I can't walk? And so it just means we need to expand the vision, expand the scope. And so what he determined initially was, I want to develop a measuring system with aerospace engineer. So we can compare things on a comparative basis, so we can know if we're helping or harming. And then he then wanted to bring into it Hans Selye's work on stress. Is there a resistance spine? Is there an exhaustion spine? And we've all seen them, okay? When people are back, that's a resistance spine, okay? So we see how they can toe out and lock their knees. And when they lean back in curve, that means that spine is defensive, it's resistant. An exhaustion spine is when we break down forward. That's an exhaustion spine. Have we seen people walking around forward, looking with their head down, these kind of things? So that's an exhaustion spine. Then he noted that the spine can go right or left, or maybe it goes right and left, okay, because there are mixed patterns. So that's what he really started looking at. So, and then he started about, I don't know what, it would have been about 78, maybe 1978. My brother had chronic exhaustion. And my dad looked at his pattern and he said, something's going on here. I don't know what it is, but he is tired all the time. And so my dad took an x-ray on him, and he was in this standing forward curve. And at that point, he was like, well, that's an exhaustion pattern. We don't know what that means, but it's exhausting. So he had my brother go through every test imaginable, went to our family doctor, they ran every test. What they found was nothing was wrong. Well, guess what happened? The doctor said, Dr. Ward, stick to cracking backs. Leave the real doctor work to us. Okay? And 10 months later, my brother was diagnosed with American Burkitt's lymphoma, which is an extremely fast-growing cancer. Then he went through chemotherapy and radiation. Guess what happened? The spine went from here back to normal. Okay? So all of a sudden, my dad realized, well, that is the defense system working. When it's forward in exhaustion, and now it's back operating more efficiently with energy. Okay? So then, what happened is my brother's chronic exhaustion came on again, and this time even more significantly than the last time. And a few months later, he passed away from the cancer he had, and he passed away at age 17. So yeah, it's hard life, you know, when you lose various people. But I was able to help my dad with the functional short leg discovery. And then my brother was really able to help him understand that our spinal system will reveal if we're operating efficiently with energy or if we're operating in resistance, or if we're operating in exhaustion. And once we have determined that, now we start looking at disease. And it doesn't really matter what the disease is. What we're trying to do is identify what the pattern is. Is there a pattern to heart attack? Is there, since you brought up heart. Okay, thought I'd lead with that, Ted. I love your brilliance. I said, I should put that in there. Anyway, so what we find in heavy heart attack is we're going to find really far backward curve. Whereas in congestive heart failure, we'll find breakdown of the curve. Okay? If we look at heavy heart attack multi-generationally, we are going to see male parent withdrawal, male parent abandonment, male parent absence. Okay. If we look at a basic resistance pattern, when people do go backward in curve, like in this case, this person's neck is 17.9 centimeters backward from normal. And I would reach over there, but that black line should be where that line is going up the middle. And that backward curve is so significant. And in our work, we put everything to numbers, and that would deal with alcoholic father who drinks and becomes very critical, and had that happen from his father, multi-generations of this behavioral pattern. Now, what's important to understand about this is this kid's 17 years old. Okay? Just like this kid here with this extreme curvature is 15 years old. All right? And what happens, because we see this pattern, and when we see it, what do? Every time, you need to call a cardiologist today. Not a week from today, not a year from today. There are amazing doctors on this planet. And when we identify patterns, we help people who are gifted at what they do save lives. And in this case, the mom did not do it. She didn't do it. And I talked to her 3 days later. Have you done it? No. A week later. Have you done this? Have you gone? No. About the 9th day, he dies from a heart attack at age 17. Oh my God. Okay? So when we see a pattern, it really helps us to identify what the underlying issue is. Because everything, prostate cancer, for instance, always been curving right. They always curve right in prostate cancer. That sounds pretty crazy, right? That is something that I could even say with any conviction at all. But what we will find in prostate cancer is we're going to find strong mother influence. We're going to find that male attracts a strong female. Strong females are going to be like firstborn females. Any firstborn females in the room? Okay. All right. Or females following females in the room. So when we're dealing with strong females, what do we find? Left curve, at least early on in life. So they're strong and they're independent and they overthink. And when they get hurt, what do? They take it internal. They process it logically. They rationalize it. And then oftentimes we find backward curve associated with that too, and they then withdraw from that hurt. They have difficulty in being vulnerable. Right? Yes, absolutely. Yes. So when we look at those patterns, now this is where the excitement really begins. Okay? Because a left curve woman is going to attract a right curve man 99 times out of 100. So they're going to attract a man that has a strong mom. And maybe their father worked a lot, or maybe the father's not around a lot. Okay? And then that male who had a strong mom is going to attract a strong wife. And that strong wife may have male parent issues, where they didn't know how to ask their fathers what they needed from them. Okay? Have we ever had those issues in life where I have a need, but I don't want to ask? Well, what happens if we don't ask? We don't get. I learned that in Scripture. Ask and ye shall receive. Right? Seek and ye shall find. Anyway, And I'm knocking on this door, so good things are happening. But anyway, that's a backward curve. But what's interesting about this backward curve, and here is an example of the change of position. Why looking at people standing and seated is vital? Vital. Because the standing frame is going to deal with resistance. How many people cry during a sad movie? Anyone? I do. Guys, yeah. Anyway, well, if you watch that same movie you cry during standing, you won't cry. I know, I'm getting you thinking. Right, if you're standing during a sad movie, most people when they stand are more backward and curved, so they have more resistance. But when they sit, they're more emotional. Okay, that's why in conflict we should always stand. Because if we sit in conflict, we're going to personalize someone else's projection. And since behavior is proven to be multi-generational, like I have a high standard pattern, mainly because I got this guy. Okay, but my high standard pattern came from my mom. Okay, my mom said, now son, if you do it, I want you to do it right. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, what does that mean? I guess that means perfect, right? So I go on my journey. Okay, so all I got to do is do it right. And if I do it right, I'm going to get validated. Well, guess what happened? I would score 4 touchdowns in a game. Son, I got to talk to you about losing your focus when you drop that ball. It wasn't about the 4 I scored. It was the one I dropped. And so I was like, wow, this is kind of interesting. So what we commonly hear, we've all heard that message, right? If you do it right. Has everyone heard that? Okay. And then we go on our journey to do our best intention, right? And then we look for approval, right? And then what happens? Oh, that's good, but. Have we ever heard, oh, that's good, but? Okay. And what does the word but indicate? It is a negate. So when we hear the word but, it's a form of irrational logic. So it negates our whatever we're doing. So, oh, if you do it right. Okay, I gave my best, but you can improve. So then what does it set up? Driven pattern. Oh, if I do more, I'll get more. Well, what happens if the person we're seeking approval from has never self-approved? Right? What? You kill yourself. Trying to please. Hallelujah. I learned that from the Bible too. Hallelujah. Anyway, and so it's so important to have clarity, that we need to be looking at the real message here, not the multi-generational message. See, my mom was one of 10 kids, and the first 5 kids were girls. The father wanted boys to farm, so what did he get? Wow, a lot of strong women. A lot of strong women. And then I would go to my mom, please give me what I need, right? And my mom's like, what? Are you out of your mind, right? So that's how this stuff works. And when you really think about it, it makes a lot of sense. And that was, I will give you a reframe to that. Because if we leave with this clarity, thank you. If we leave with this clarity, we can really make some changes in our lives, okay? So change it from the message, if you do it right, change it to, I was taught that if you do it, to do it right. But what I learned is when I did it and gave my best intention, I wasn't validated. Now we have something to build on that's life-changing, that's life-transforming, okay? Then we focus in on, did I give my best intention? And if I gave my best intention, then isn't it great to step up and give your best validation? Right? I was just on a medical panel with 3 medical doctors and myself. And so when I started the panel discussion, I asked a question. And the question I asked to the 400 people was, by a show of hands, how many people told themselves they loved themselves today? Guess how many hands went up? No. Not one hand went up out of 400 people. Oh my gosh. And it was at the end of the month. So I said, by a show of hands, how many people told themselves they loved themselves this month? How many hands went up? Not one hand. Then I said, how many people have never told themselves they love themselves? Guess how many hands went up? Every hand went up. And I'm like, wow. And so I said, this is why it's important that we get clear on simple things, because simple things work. And, Scripture says, 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 8, above all things we're to love. The first spiritual fruit is love. And yet, so often we're withholding love from our life. And so, if I have anything that I feel I need to accomplish here today, it's just that awareness that when we wake up in the morning, meet our life with love. And when we go to sleep at night, meet our life with love. And if someone's critical, I love myself even when you're critical. If someone's abandoned me, I love myself even when you're abandoning. All right? I'm reframing constantly in life because fear-based mechanisms are, we've heard of those, right? What is a fear-based reality? People who judge, blame, shame, guilt, criticize, resent. Those are all based in fear, not in love. And those are all things that are multi-generationally passed. Meaning, if someone was critical of me, then you better believe that that person who was critical of me had someone who was critical of them. So critical people criticize people, and hurt people hurt people. And people who were abandoned reject people, and people who never were made to feel enough make other people not feel enough. And if we can see these simple things, we can really enjoy our life at a different level, okay? But in any event, I think those are important things to get our head around, and to watch every word, to realize every word we choose has intention, and be very strong with our word, with our thought. The scripture, death and life is in the power of the tongue, is really important to get your head around. Our words either bring us death or they bring us life. And in health issues, it's hard because we get a health issue and then we get an unhealthy program from someone that doesn't know how to solve, and now we are impacting our reality, and what we need to do is take the power back. We need to realize that every day, I don't care what the problem is, whatever the problem is, focus in on the outcome you desire, not where you are. If you're exhausted, don't say, I'm so tired. Say, every day I'm feeling more and more energy. Energy is coming back into my being. It's transforming my health today. Reframe the brain to get to the healthiest outcome for each person, okay? So I'll break down pain patterns. Lower back pain always deals with a reversal of the lumbar curve. So I will show it here, just so we can get an idea of what's happening. So when the lumbar...
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle. When the lumbar curve reverses, it means the person was programmed to internalize the hurt that they feel. And we can deal with hurt many different ways. Thank you. We can internalize hurt. We can react to hurt. We can be aggressive with hurt. We can be assertive with hurt. And so even if we express our hurt outwardly, not even to the person, even if we say, oh, when so-and-so said that, it made me feel this and that was hurtful to me, I can shift that back pain condition. Because what you will find in every lower back case is in disc problems, the only way the disc can blow out is if the lumbar curve reverses, and you're only going to see it sitting. So if you're going to lie down and get your MRI and you're going to find some problems, no, they're way more severe than what you're looking at. And doesn't that make sense? And if you're in pain sitting and it goes away when you lie down, what makes you think you're going to see it lying down? Right? Okay. So that's lower back pain. So people who go backward in curve, internalize. People who go forward in curve, react. This is a reactive curve. It comes with oftentimes a backward curve. All right? So when the spine goes back, this is what we call a defensive pattern. So how many people have ever tried their best at something, and then someone came along and made them feel as if their best was not enough, and then that triggered a feeling of inadequacy, which then triggered a reactive anger. Okay?
Sure.
Yeah. Amen there. That's how that works. Because it's a triggered mechanism. Reactive anger is always triggered by a feeling of inadequacy. Yes, dear.
Why is there an arrow at the brain?
Only because my cursor should have been moved there.
Well, I thought it was because everything starts in the brain.
What's that?
I thought because all that you are talking about starts in the brain.
You are amazing. Thank you. You know, it's good. It's really important to understand that our brain plays such a big role, and thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so now that's a different pattern. Now, headaches. Anyone ever have a headache? Okay. Headache deals with mental punishment. So when we give our best and then we're hard on ourselves, when we've given our best, now we're going to be hard on ourselves? We got to look at that. Because those are multi-generational programs. Criticism's always generational. If you study identical twins that are separated at birth, you find that they're very similar. If they come back together 40 years after separation, they are very similar psychologically. Why? Because at the moment of conception, you're getting the mom and dad's DNA. You're getting their DNA and you're getting their behavioral DNA. All right? And so what we help people to understand is what's theirs and what's not theirs. And guess what? I'm a right curve man. I followed a brother. My mom wanted what? A daughter. What'd she get? An emotional male. Crying all the time. You know, crying that we ran out of bacon. I'm just kidding. but anyway. So that's in my story. That's why I curve to the right. And I'm certainly way more emotional and empathetic. And when someone has a challenge, I'm treating them 5 times in the same day to unlock that problem. I don't treat them once. I'm like, oh no, you need like every hour. Okay, so headaches, watch out for the mental punishment. Realize that's an inherited message. Neck pain, it's almost herniated disc in the neck. You'll have a strong incidence of father absence, father withdrawal. If the father is, say, an alcoholic and say he drank and then became critical, then the child will drop their head in shame. That will reverse the cervical curve and blow out the lower cervical disc. Okay. This pattern has anxiety goes with this pattern because it's coming from an authoritative parent multi-generationally, and that parent is dominant. Okay, I'm being told I got 5 minutes to go. And it's amazing how fast time goes because it feels like I've only been talking for 5 minutes. I want to tell you a little bit about my clinic, then I'll take a couple minutes of questions. I'm in Long Beach, California. My website is chiroman.com, and what we do in our office is we do wall adjusting. We never do a table adjustment. We never do face down adjustments. We found face down adjustments when we looked for evidence did not produce the results that we thought they would. The spines actually got worse. So we do all of our adjustments standing or sitting. There is a video on Chiroman of me adjusting 14 people for the first time. What you will find in that 14 people is every person laughs after their adjustment. Every single person on the first adjustment laughs. It's incredible, okay? I also wanted to bring up that I have teamed up with a person that's incredibly powerful, and she does a science where she studies your feet to determine organ function, and she uses herbs to counter what's going on with the organ. So my clinic deals with behavior and adjusting. I will use collards and wedges to counterbalance the spine. And then we use herbs to really heal the inner organs. And she's actually out here in Irvine. You can look at her on herbalashley.com, and she has videos, and she's quite brilliant. And in my case, I lost 22 pounds, got off blood pressure medication, no more left ankle pain, no more right kidney pain. And so I'm planning on taking herbs the rest of my life. But anyway, I just wanted to share some of these concepts, and I have so much in 3D and various things to show, but when you have just a little bit of time, you got to make the best of it. Thanks, Ted, for your input. In any event, is there any questions that anyone has a question for me?
My name's Kevin. And
Hi, Kevin.
The question is, at what ages does the psychological curvature hold true? I'm thinking the forward, what that one called, the exhaustion curvature, I can see makes sense, but old age, when I look at old people, they're always forward. and that's
They're not
natural.
always forward, but in the cases where they are forward standing, look at a very strong mother or grandmother influence. Look at a need for outside approval from a strong female that didn't give approval to self and couldn't give validation to that person. Yes. Oh, sorry.
What I'm wondering is, how do I phrase this question? You know, I know a lot of chiropractic doctors who are getting involved in functional medicine and autoimmune issues and things like that. And I'm wondering about the interplay between autoimmune reactions and actual structural problems. I don't know if you can...
Yeah, autoimmune is defensive patterns. So you're going to find the women in autoimmune are going to be firstborn females or female following females or females surrounded by brother. So if you have 4 brothers and 1 female, you're going to look for autoimmune. Fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. When you get into Lyme disease, you're going to see it. With men in those kind of cases, they are going to be more likely to be right in curve and backward in curve. Those are defensive patterns. So that is more what you're going to see in the defense aspect.
Can I follow that with a
Sure.
secondary question then? Is it possible to make, how should I say, adjustments that could then actually solve some autoimmune?
I solve, just read my reviews on Google and Yelp. If you go to Ward Chiropractic Long Beach, you will find our reviews are solving stuff that no one's solving. And it is because it's not, you can't separate the psychological from the physical. That's all part of us. And we need to know what we're carrying that's not ours. And we need to take off our glasses, set them down, start looking at our life through our own loving eyes instead of someone else's projection of dysfunction that has happened for multiple generations. Yes, dear.
So much of this makes sense, and thank you. I strongly believe in chiropractic. 50 years, they saved my life in the 60s. My question, or we were talking earlier about x-rays, analyzing x-rays. I constantly go to chiropractors, have my whole life. Nobody ever takes an x-ray, insists on an x-ray, or talks about the things you're talking about.
The reason being is doctors have always looked at segments of the spine and they don't find, that, once you see, oh, you have degeneration, what do you do? Where do you go? It's so limited. So a lot of doctors do not take the x-rays because they haven't been trained to see these patterns. But once the world understands there's a pattern to everything, left breast, left ovary, parent wanting boy, getting girl, right breast, right ovary, dominant mother who projects her feeling of inadequacy onto her daughter. Deep, deep issues. Sorry about that. I get a little deep. I'm apologizing now. Yes. Car accidents, well, yes, but if car accidents will not have the same impact that the psychological behavior will have. Yes.
Thank you for this wonderful
You're welcome.
presentation. And it fits so much, many of it, with quite a few therapists in here, and it certainly matches what I know. Anything written beyond your website?
I have a lot of videos on the topic, and I am working on my first book, My Father's Bones. And so I'm hoping to have that done by the end of the year. You can write your emails down and I can inform you once that's done. The second or third book is going to be on gender confusion, gender cancer, and transgender, because when you start identifying curvature with those issues, you realize there's patterns. And that's all I'm saying. I'm really not I'm an expert, but I'm so humble with this, because when you think you know it, you realize I get this and I'm like, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know where to start. So all I can do is start with basic things that can help reframe this child to want to live, to want to love, to want to have joy, to stay faithful, to reframe these things energetically, to not look for approval from a parent that can't give it, to give themselves the approval they need, not look for it from someone else. Anyone else? Because, there. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you.